morning, ladies and gentlemen. Um, my name is Odilon Ngu. I'm the founder of Ngu Utopia. Um, I am the author of the Ngu Theory and the book Ngu Utopia. Today, I'm going to be giving you guys my perspective on how I feel we can utilize blockchain technology. African continent can utilize blockchain technology to redefine its future, to put itself on the right path for optimal growth. Quick background. Um, so I've been very interested in intelligent systems since I was a teenager. Um, I began by studying myself and how I connect to the rest of the world. And my knowledge grew to me connecting myself to not just the planet, but to the universe. So my journey taught me that all systems, all intelligent systems are coupled with each other. So everything that happens on one system is going to be registered on another system. And this got me thinking that this was similar to the architecture of blockchain technology, where every new block was connected to the previous block, and every action on the block was registered by all the other blocks on the blockchain. So, just to give a quick definition of blockchain, blockchain technology is essentially a model of information storage and distribution that allows essentially all the information to be connected to each other, to be coupled with each other. That way, all the list of data are coupled, and any activity on the blockchain is registered by all the blocks on the blockchain. And you can think of each block representing a person, each block representing a system, each block representing some model that creates value, some model that represents something, right? So at the fundamental level, you can think of our universe, you can think of our earth, you can think of us, you can think of organisms as just essentially a blockchain ledger that we've all grown out of the original block, right? Okay, so now this gets me to the point of the original block. This is called the genesis block in blockchain terminology. The genesis block is essentially the block that the coder that codes the blockchain define the block and how the block is going to grow, right? So that's the genesis, as in biblical terms, it will be Genesis as in the beginning. In technological terms, it will be Genesis as in the first block of the blockchain. So the Genesis block defines the rules of how the blockchain will grow over time, right? So now I made this connection with our world, and then I realized that the reason why there's a lot of issues in our world today is because this blockchain system world that we live in has been diverted. What do I mean by diverted? I mean that divergence has occurred. The blockchain has split. The blockchain has split, and then it has disconnected itself from the original Genesis block, like I was saying before. The Genesis block is the original block that tells the rules of how the rest of the blockchain should grow, right? But in the blockchain system, there are these things called divergence, where the blockchain will split into two, right? And when the blockchain splits into two, essentially there will be two different rules that will be governing the two different blockchains, the two different chains, right? But the problem comes now when this diverted chain becomes completely disconnected from the original Genesis block. That means that the rules that govern this new diverged chain are not the rules of the original blockchain. They are not the rules of the Genesis block. right? And I thought that this was very, very familiar to me because it got me thinking about how our world is today. How we don't know what the genesis block of this planet was, or we do know, but we refuse to acknowledge, right? So I think that from that understanding, we have to now redefine the genesis block. We have to now redefine what it means to be a human, not just in the physical terms, but in the non-physical terms, in the immaterial way. And I will elaborate. So this whole episode is going to be to show you how Africa can utilize the philosophy of the blockchain to optimize the continent, for growth. Essentially, what's happened in the last couple of thousand years, not couple hundred, couple thousand years, is that the continent of Africa has been disconnected from its original blockchain, its original genesis block, the block that defined what the rules were, the block that defined what it meant to be African, the block that defined what it meant to be from that continent, the block that defined how we treat each other, the block that defined our morality, the block that defined our infrastructures. So that block has been disconnected from. So essentially, there was a divergence with the block of this earth. If we are going to look at it from that perspective, right? And we are now running on the chain of on the diverted chain, the chain that essentially is not connected to the original genesis block. But what are the implications of that? What does it mean when the chain is disconnected from the original block? It means that the chain is not going to be fully efficient because the original block gives the rest of the blockchain the rules, the rest of the blocks on the chain, the rules of how to grow, the rules of how to interact with each other, right? So if you disconnect from the original genesis block, then the rules that the new divergent block will go by will be the rules when divergence happens. It will be the divergent rules. It will be the watered down rules. It wouldn't be the original rules. So, what do I mean when I say this? I think that as the continent of Africa has been disconnected from its genesis block, and we know why. I don't have to go into details. So I think that the first thing that we have to do, if we are to actually progress forward, is we have to redefine the genesis block. We have to reconnect this divergent chain that we currently live on with the rules that were not defined by our genesis block, because the Africans have a different genesis block. The African genesis block is the genesis block of the entire continent, of the entire planet, right? Because that is the origin, and all the other blocks that exist after the origin are subsequent. The rules that those blocks are governed by should be the same rules that the genesis block was governed by, but that's not how it is today. Is that Africa has been disconnected from the genesis block so that the divergent block can essentially, in a way, siphon energy, siphon information, whatever you want to call it, data system. Is that this system is basically inefficient. So for us to make it more efficient, for Africa to essentially go to where it's supposed to be, to its right position in the world, as the mother of the world, as the birther of all systems on this planet, is that Africa has to reconnect itself to the genesis block. It has to redefine itself, not just in terms of material, not in terms of economics, but in terms of philosophy. Africa has to redefine itself in terms of ideology. We have to reconnect ourselves to the genesis block. And once we do that, it's not only going to benefit Africa as a continent, it's going to benefit the entire planet. Because when Africa reconnects to the genesis block, it means that all the other systems on the planet will now be getting this energy from Africa. Because all these other systems on this planet are subsequent systems that came after Africa. The people, the technology, the philosophies, they all came after Africa. So all their energy is linked to Africa, like it or not. So the moment Africa reconnects itself to that genesis block, to that original block, to that original definition of what it means to be African, what it means to be an African, and how Africans should interact with each other, and how Africans should interact with the world, then the world would literally become a better place. because all the information and all the data, all the energy from Africa will become distributed throughout the whole blockchain, not just the divergent chain, but the entire blockchain. So I think that that is a fundamental thing that we have to understand if we are going to move forward as Africans. No? If we want help from Western from the West to help Africa grow. What we don't need is more fiat currency. What we don't need is more things that disconnect our African selves from that Genesis block. What we need is space. What Africa needs is space from the rest of the world. What Africa needs is not more of your fiat currency. What Africa needs is not more of your capital, of your venture capitalist investors. What Africa needs is space. Africa needs space to redefine itself. Africa needs space to redefine its philosophies, its ideologies, how Africans should interact with each other, what it means to be an African, and how Africa will interact with the world. And until Africa does that, every other system that is trying to interact with Africa is going to be siphoning and extracting from Africa or stealing from Africa because Africa is not ready. Okay? We have to go to a point where we know who we are, we define ourselves, and we'll be able to interact with the world in an efficient manner.